9.2, solving equations by completing the square practice solutions. All right, so for the first four, we are just completing the square to form a perfect square trinomial. So we got to find our b, and we divide it by 2, then we square it, then we add it onto that binomial that they're giving us to get a perfect square trinomial. So for example 1, we have x squared plus 26x. Our b here is 26, so we're going to divide that by 2. We're going to do b over 2 and then square it. So that's going to give us 26 over 2 squared, which is 13 squared, and that is 169. So we're going to add that to the x squared plus 2x, or sorry, plus 26x plus 169, and that is our perfect square trinomial. For number 2, we have x squared minus 18x, so our b is negative 18. Again, we're going to do b over 2 squared. That's going to give us negative 18 over 2 squared, which is negative 9 squared, and that is 81. So we're going to add that to the binomial to give us x squared minus 18x is plus 81. For 3, we have x squared minus 2x. So for this one, our b is negative 2. We're going to do b over 2 squared. And that's going to give us negative 2 over 2 squared, which is negative 1 squared. And that is 1. So we add that to the x squared minus 2x to give us x squared minus 2x plus 1. For number 4, we have x squared minus 24x, so our b is negative 24. Again, b over 2 squared. So that's going to be negative 24 over 2 squared, which is negative 12 squared. Negative 12 squared is 144. So to make that perfect square trinomial, we add it to the x squared minus 24x plus 144. And that gives us our perfect square trinomial. For 5 through 8, we are solving by completing the square. So for 5, we're given x squared plus 8x is equal to 33. So our constant's already on the side by itself. So we are going to find our b, which in this case is 8. We're going to do b over 2 squared. So that's going to be 8 over 2 squared, which is 4 squared, and that is 16. The 16 we're going to add to the 33, as well as the x squared plus 8x. So we're going to have x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 33 plus 16. We're going to factor the left side, add the right side. When we factor the left side, we're going to have x plus 4 squared. When we add the right side, 33 plus 16 is 49. So from here, we're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, when we take the square root of that 49, we're going to get plus or minus 7. So we want all possible solutions here. So we have x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 7. Because that equation is equal to a positive number and a negative number, and there's no radicals there, we're going to turn this into two equations. So x plus 4 is equal to negative 7, and x plus 4 is equal to positive 7. We're going to solve for x. We subtract the 4 from each side. We get that x is equal to negative 11, and x is equal to 3. For number 6, we're given x squared minus 6x is equal to 8. Our constant's already on the side by itself, so our b is negative 6. We're going to do b over 2 squared. B over 2 squared gives us negative 6 over 2 squared, which is negative 3 squared, and that is 9. the 9 is going to be added to the 8, as well as the x squared minus 6x. So we're going to have x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 8 plus 9. We're going to factor the left side, add the right side. So we're going to have x minus 3 squared is equal to 17. We take the square root of both sides. The square root cancels out the exponent to where it's just x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 17. We're going to move that 3 over, so we're going to add it to both sides. And we're going to have x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 17. For 7, we have x squared plus 12x is equal to 5. Our constant's on the right side by itself. So b is 12. b over 2 squared is going to be 12 over 2 squared, which is 6 squared, and that is 36. So we're going to add the 36 to the 5 and the x squared plus 12x. So x squared plus 12x plus 36 is equal to 5 plus 36. Add the right, factor the left, so x plus 6 squared is equal to 41. From here, take the square root of both sides. So we're going to have x plus 6 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 41. Move this 6 over, subtract it from each side, and we get that x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 41. For 8, we're given x squared minus 14x is equal to 95. So we are going to take or find b. In this case, b is negative 14. So we're going to do b over 2 squared. So that's going to be negative 14 over 2 squared, which is negative 7 squared, and that is 49. The 49 we're going to add to the 95 and the x squared minus 14x. So x squared minus 14x plus 49 is equal to 95 plus 49. From here, we factor that left side, and we get x minus 7 squared. We add that right side. That 95 plus 49 gives us 144. So from here, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we're going to have x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus 12. We're going to separate this now into two equations. So x minus 7 is equal to negative 12, as well as x minus 7 is equal to positive 12. From here, we're going to add that 7 to both sides. So we're going to have negative 12 plus 7, which gives us negative 5. So x is equal to negative 5. And then we add that 7 to the other one. We get that x is equal to 19. So negative 5 and 19 are our solutions for this one. For 9, we have 9x squared plus 12x is equal to 32. Our constant's on this side by itself. However, we have an x squared with a coefficient that's other than 1. So we want to divide everything by that 9 to give us an a of 1. So we're going to be working with x squared plus 4 over 3x is equal to 32 over 9. It's going to stay 32 over 9. So from here, we are going to identify our b. Our b is 4 over 3. So we're going to do b divided by 2 squared. So 4 over 3 divided by 2 over 1 squared is the same thing as 4 over 3 times 1 over 2 squared. So that 4 would become a 2, the 2 would become a 1. It's just going to be 2/3 squared, which gives us 4/9. From here, we are going to add that 4/9 to the 32 over 9, as well as the x squared plus 4/3 x. So we're going to have x squared plus 4/3 x plus 4/9 is equal to 32 over 9 plus 4 over 9. We're going to factor the left side, add the right side. So we're going to have x plus 2/3 squared is equal to the 32 plus 4 is 36 over 9. We are going to take the square root of both sides. That cancels out the exponent to where we have x plus 2/3 is equal to plus or minus 6 over 3. If you want, you can simplify that 6 over 3. However, I wouldn't, because when I'm going to move my 2/3 over and subtract it from each side, I want the same denominators. So I'm going to keep that denominator there. So again, I'm going to separate this into two equations. So x plus 2/3 is equal to negative 6 over 3, as well as x plus 2/3 is equal to positive 6 over 3. I'm going to subtract the 2/3 from each side. And this is going to leave me with x is equal to negative 8 over 3. And x is equal to 4 over 3. For 10, we have 4x squared plus 20x is equal to 2. So I'm going to divide everything by this 4 to give me that x squared with a coefficient of 1. So this is going to be x squared plus 5x is equal to 1/2. My constant is on the same side, or on its own side, so my b is 5. From here, we're going to do b over 2 squared. So 5 over 2 squared gives us 25 over 4. I'm going to add this 25 over 4 to the 1/2 and the x squared plus 5x to give us x squared plus 5x plus 25 over 4 is equal to 2/4, because 2/4 and 1/2 are the same thing, plus 25 over 4. I'm going to add the right, factor the left, so I'm going to get x plus 5 over 2 squared is equal to 27 over 4. I take the square root of both sides. It cancels out my exponent, so I only have x plus 5 over 2 is equal to plus or minus 3 square root 3 all over 2. The 27 is 3 and 9. The 9 is 3 and 3, so that's where I'm getting the 3 square root 3 over the 2 from. From here, I'm going to subtract the 5 over 2 from each side. And this would be written as x is equal to negative 5 over 2 plus or minus 3 square root 3 over 2. So since these have the same denominator here, we can write it as one fraction as just x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus 3 square root 3 all over 2. For 11, we have 16x squared minus 32x is equal to 65. So I'm going to first start by dividing everything by that 16. So I'm going to be left with x squared minus the 32 divided by 16 is just 2. So that's minus 2x is equal to the 65 divided by 16, which doesn't give us a whole number. So we can leave it the 65 over 16. From here, we are going to get our b, which is negative 2, divided by 2, and square it. That's going to give us negative 1 squared, which is 1. We're going to add that 1 to both sides of our equation to get x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 65 over 16 plus 16 over 16. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that way I can add these fractions and not worry about those like denominators. So I'm going to factor that left side. I'm going to get x minus 1 squared. I'm going to add that right side. 65 plus 16 gives me 81 over 16. So from here, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to get x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus 9 over 4. So again, since I have a fraction that doesn't have or doesn't include radicals, I'm going to separate this into two equations. So I'm going to have x plus 1 is equal to negative 9 over 4, as well as x plus 1 is equal to positive 9 over 4. I'm going to move that 1 over. I'm going to turn it into a fraction with the same denominator as 4 when I move it over. So subtract the 1 from both sides. I'm going to also be subtracting 4 over 4 because 1 and 4 over 4 are the same. So I'm going to get negative 13 over 4. And same thing over here. I'm going to subtract 4 over 4 from each side and get that x is also 5 over 4. For 12, we have 9x squared minus 24x is equal to 1. So I'm going to divide everything by that 9. So I'm going to get x squared minus 24 over 9 is 8 over 3. X is equal to 1/9. My b is at negative 8 over 3. So I'm going to divide that by 2, which is the same thing as negative 8 over 3 divided by 2 over 1, and then square it. So this is going to be negative 8 over 3 times 1 over 2 squared. Negative 8 times 1 is negative 8 over 6 squared is 64 over 36. So I'm going to add this to both sides to give me x squared minus 8/3 x plus 64 over 36 is equal to 1/9 is the same thing as what over 36? 9 times 4 is 36, so it's going to be 4 over 36 plus 64 over 36. So from here, if I factor that left side, I'm going to have x minus 8 over 6 squared is equal to 68 over 36. I'm going to take the square root of both sides from here. So I'm going to be left with x minus 8 over 6 is equal to plus or minus. The 68 is 4 and 17. The 4 is 2 and 2, so that's just plus or minus 2 square root 17 over 6. I'm going to leave this so that way when I add over that 8 over 6 to both sides, I have like denominators. So I'm going to add 8 over 6 to both sides. And this is going to give me x is equal to 8 plus or minus 2 square root 17 all over 6. Now, simplify. The 6, the 2, and the 8 all have factors of 2. So the 8 is going to turn into a 4, the 2 turns into a 1, the 6 turns into a 3. So x is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 17 all over 3. For 13, we have 1/2 x squared plus 4x is equal to 10. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2 to get rid of that 1/2 in front of the x squared. So this is going to be x squared plus 8x is equal to 20. My b is 8, so 8 divided by 2 squared is 4 squared, which is 16. I add the 16 to the 20 and the x squared plus 8x to give me x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 20 plus 16. This is going to end up as x plus 4 squared is equal to 36. We take the square root of both sides, so x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 6. I separate this into two equations. X plus 4 is equal to negative 6. X plus 4 is equal to positive 6. I then subtract that 4 from both sides to get x is equal to negative 10 and x is equal to 2. For 14, we have 3x squared minus 4x is equal to 20. So I'm going to start by dividing everything by 3. I get x squared minus 4/3 x is equal to 20 over 3. My b is negative 4/3, so I'm going to do negative 4 over 3 divided by 2 over 1 squared, which is the same thing as negative 4 over 3 times 1 over 2 squared. The 2 becomes a 1, the negative 4 becomes a negative 2. So that's negative 2 times 1, which is negative 2, over 3 times 1, which is 3 squared. So that's going to be 4 over 9. I'm going to add that 4/9 to both sides of my equation. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4 thirds x plus 4 ninths is equal to 20 over 3 is the same thing as 60 over 9 times the 3 by 3 times the 20 by 3 plus 4 ninths. So from here, I'm going to have x minus 2 thirds squared is equal to 64 over 9. I take the square root of both sides. I'm going to have x minus 2 thirds is equal to plus or minus 8 over 3. So again, I'm going to turn this into two equations. So I'm going to have x minus 2 thirds is equal to negative 8 over 3, and x minus 2 thirds is equal to positive 8 over 3. I add that 2 thirds to both sides. I'm going to have x is equal to negative 6 over 3, which is equal to negative 2. And I'm also going to add the 2 thirds over here to get x is equal to 10 over 3. So x is equal to 10 over 3 and x is equal to negative 2. For 15, we are given 2x squared plus 14x is equal to 4. We're going to divide everything by that 2 to get x squared plus 7x is equal to 2. Our b is 7, so 7 over 2 squared is going to be 49 over 4. We're going to add this to both sides. When I do that, I'm going to turn that 2 into something over 4, so that's going to be 8 over 4. So I'm going to have x squared plus 7x plus 49 over 4 is equal to 8 over 4 plus 49 over 4. From here, I factor my left side. I add my right side. So if I factor my left side, I'm going to have x plus 7 over 2 plus 7 over 2 squared is equal to 8 plus 49 gives us 57 over 4. We take the square root of both sides. So we're going to have x plus 7 over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 57 over 2. So we're going to move the 7 over 2 over by subtracting it from each side. And we're going to be left with x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 57 all over 2. For 16, we have 1/2 x squared minus 5x is equal to 18. So in order to get rid of that 1/2, we're going to multiply everything by 2. This is going to leave us with x squared minus 10x is equal to 36. From here, our b is the negative 10. So negative 10 over 2 squared is negative 5 squared, which is 25. We add the 25 to both sides. So x squared minus 10x plus 25 is equal to 36 plus 25. We're going to be left with x minus 5 squared is equal to the 6 plus 5 is 11, 4 and 2 is 6, 61. So from here we take the square root of both sides. So we're going to have x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 61. We move that 5 over by adding it to both sides, and we're left with x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 61.